Recent study that came from MD, VIP, and IPSOS finds that 2/3 of adults are experiencing recurring digestive issues like gas, bloating, abdominal pain, and the like. Now, I don't know if it's 2/3 or more, but it seems like as Americans, we are dealing with more gut health issues today than we ever have before. The episode is 175. The guest is Sami Nordlund, and the topic is chronic inflammation and gut health. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm excited to introduce you to Sami. She is the founder of Forever Fitness. She's a certified personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist, and a nutrition coach. She is an online fitness coach that specializes in helping driven individuals reduce inflammation so that they can reduce inflammatory symptoms, lose weight, increase energy, and improve their focus, and just overall feel better so that they have a better life. She's a wife and a mom, and she understands the challenge of creating a healthy lifestyle in the midst of a busy life. So, with that, I want to welcome you to episode 175 with Sami Nordlund. Welcome to The Evolved Man, where we are at war with the mediocrity of modern man. The Evolved Man is for men like you who are willing to be strong, open, and aggressive learners. Men who are not afraid to disrupt and change. It's time we ditch the current conventional idea that we devolve with age, that the dad bod is our destiny, and that the glory days are behind us. Your best isn't behind you, and I'm here to provide you with practical tools, a few tips and tricks, and everyday wisdom to help you evolve into your highest form. Strong, lean, smart, educated, and emotionally intelligent. Now, let's go to war. Well, Sami, thanks again for jumping on. Great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I've been fascinated with a lot of the stuff that you put out there relative to chronic inflammation and gut health. I mean, gut health in particular is a passion of mine to study because it's something I used to deal with at a very deep level. And it was, I mean, there's no two ways around it. It was embarrassing at times. I mean, there were moments when I used to travel constantly for work and I would be on the road, 2, 3 weeks out of the month. And my gut health issues really inhibited what I could do. But I didn't realize for a long time how it was affecting me in multiple areas. So I've really resonated with a lot of the stuff that you have been putting out there. I, I'm curious, how closely, from your perspective, is chronic inflammation and gut health?
No, how close. Um, Hand in hand. I
Mm.
don't think that you can have
They're
one.
interdigitating.
Yeah, I don't think that you can have one without the other. I
Yeah.
really don't. Your gut health definitely is directly reflective of whether or not you have inflammation. And sometimes that whole which came first can
Hmm.
be a little hard to determine. Um, whether it was the gut health that started the chronic inflammation, the spread of it, or if the chronic inflammation is what started the gut health issues. But they definitely go hand in hand.
Yeah,
There's no doubt about
it's hard to tell what comes first, right? And it's something I talk to my clients about is that
it. Yeah.
we may not even need to know what comes first. We just need to know what's present, right?
I think sometimes it's good to try to trace it back, but sometimes
Sure,
you're not
sure.
gonna know.
Yeah, and so if we can't find it, then to not
Right,
worry too much about it.
right.
So why is it important for somebody to address their chronic inflammation or their gut health issues?
Well, I think the problem is so let's take it from a standpoint of gut health. Say you have leaky gut, okay? If you don't deal with leaky gut, and just so for those who don't know what leaky gut is, just let's just say it's small holes in the intestinal lining, and you've allowed which allows bacteria, food particles, toxins to leak out into your bloodstream, which then that spreads out through your entire system, which then causes health challenges. And if that's not addressed, those health challenges will only continue to compile, get worse. Things get harder. So it's it's very important that you deal with your gut health so that you can eliminate the inflammation, because the worse the inflammation gets, the worse your health is going to get. Um, so
Yeah, it's fascinating too. I one of the things I learned early on is even if you're eating what we would consider to be a relatively healthy diet,
Um,
if you have gut health issues, whatever it is that you're eating, because of the leaky gut, you might be putting food that is normal, natural, and healthy into your system before it's been appropriately processed. And so then your body sees that as something that's foreign, something that hasn't been addressed appropriately, and it will start to fight against that. I can't count the number of clients that I've worked with over the years that came to me. And when we looked at their food log, it looked, relatively healthy, right? A variety of foods, they're getting vitamins, minerals, multiple things. And yet they didn't feel well because they were dealing with the leaky gut.
mhm.
Now, you've mentioned before that your passion, you have a passion for helping people, and that has come from challenges that you've had with gut issues and chronic inflammation and systemic bacterial infection.
Yeah, completely.
Can you tell us like what you had to tackle on your path to getting your health back?
Um, wow. So, I mean, essentially the symptom wise that I dealt with, a lot of it, I had gut dysfunction. So I dealt with constipation, bloating, gas, cramping, complete discomfort. That started when my youngest was one,
Mm,
and he's now 21. So I dealt with that for, I don't know, 19 years before I finally was able to really, really break free from it.
mm,
Um, so, just the gut dysfunction in and of itself, and just seeing like food sensitivities. We can call them food sensitivities, but they really weren't. It was just what you were describing, where, those food particles are getting into your system not fully processed. And so
mm,
then your body is, seeing that as a foreign object and wanting to just attack. So, food sensitivities, or what I thought were food sensitivities, just continued to increase. Got to the point where I was like, what can I actually eat? I'm not sure what I can eat here without just hurting all the time. Um, I ate pretty healthy, but the problem is my body was constantly reacting to that stuff. Fatigue, adrenal fatigue, hormonal imbalances, joint aches and pains, lots of stuff that just continued to compile through the years. And to actually finally be rid of those things after dealing with those things for, you know, 20 years,
mhm.
19, 20 years, that was pretty huge for me. So, but all of that, honestly, interesting enough, because I was able to kind of trace stuff back for me. That all started back when I was in high school.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't rear its ugly head until my youngest was one, but it started back in high school for me. So
Talk about how your experiences fed your drive to help other people then.
I think more than anything, I love to help people, and just knowing how I felt and how it was to try to operate and live on a regular basis, with the symptoms that I dealt with. I want to help people to be free from those symptoms, not to have to live the way I lived, not to live in pain, not to live just trying to feel like they're just trying to make it through the day. Nobody should have to live like that. So
It's pretty debilitating, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah. I remember training, and I was dealing with a flare up, and I got to the point where I literally, like, I was training people throughout the day, just one after the other, but I had such a hard time just even focusing. The brain fog was just completely there. I was so fatigued that I literally like had to go rest between each client. Who wants to live like that? No one wants
Right.
to live like that.
Yeah.
I want to be able to live life to the full and to be able to help people to do that. So, yeah, that's what drives me.
I love that. I'm right there with you where I had some pretty challenging and debilitating things relative to my gut. And I think a lot of it started when I was younger, but I didn't really start to understand it until I was a bit older. One day I was working for the University of Utah, and I was working for them in between my classes as I was studying. And I would get these excruciating pains that would literally drop me to the floor, and I would be having cramps and pain for such a long time that I could not stand up, and it was embarrassing. I could feel when they were coming on, and so I would go hide the sad thing is I knew in each one of the buildings where I could go hide and be alone as that was happening. One day it got to the point where it was so bad I had to get into a doctor. So the doctor was he was nervous when I came in and explained to him, and he said, "We got to get an X-ray on you right now. We need to check and see." So, long story short, he comes back with my X-ray, and he looks at me and he smiles. And he kind of has this little smirk on his face, and he goes, "Well, go home and tell your wife that she was right." And I'm like, "I've just met this guy. This guy doesn't know my wife. What are you talking about?" He goes, "You're basically full of shit." And he slaps the X-ray up there, and he goes, "This is what's causing you problem. You've obviously got some sort of digestive issue. Here's what a normal colon looks like. Here's what your colon looks like." And I'm like, "Oh wow, that is horrible."
Yeah.
Over time, I figured out what was causing the issues, how to not have those issues, and it was amazing what happened as my gut health continued to improve. And that was probably 25 years ago or so. Have not had flare-ups or issues since then. For somebody who doesn't know whether or not they have chronic inflammation, what are some of the symptoms they should be looking for?
I would say if you're someone who's been dealing with, the gut dysfunction for any longer than, a couple months, really, like don't wait. Like you need to start looking at it. So if you're dealing with constipation and diarrhea, cramping, bloating, gas, those things are happening on a regular basis and it's more than 2 months, like you need to get some help and figure out what's the root, get that fixed before that goes any further. Fatigue, definitely. And we're not just talking like, oh, I'm a little bit tired today. We're talking like from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, like you are just bone tired, weary.
Mm.
That's fatigue. If that's going on, that needs to be dealt with. That's not just oh, I need to get a little sleep. That's an issue. Your body's screaming out. Joint aches and pains, honestly, like if you've got consistent joint aches and pains going on a regular basis, that's something that needs to be dealt with. Rashes, headaches on a regular basis, that's a pure sign right there. There's so many. But those are some of the top ones that I would say, like, if you're dealing with those on a regular basis, those are the ones I see most with most clients.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the aches and pains. Over the years, I've had dozens of clients who came to me with low back pain. In fact,
Mhm.
many of them were recommended surgery or they went to physical therapy because of the recommendation or prescription from a doctor. Now, I had one come to me recently that was very, very similar to many of these people. As we dive deeper, we identified that the pain was really coming from gut issues. And what
Yeah.
most people don't realize is that if you have gut issues, you're creating this massive instability in the core from the inside out.
Yeah.
And after addressing the gut problems, most of my clients didn't need any other modality to improve their low back pain. It just simply went away because we addressed what the root of the problem was. So, aside from muscle and joint pain, what are some other side effects that could be coming from the gut?
Oh, I mean, brain function. Brain fog is definitely one of the depression, anxiety, not being able to deal with stress well. Those are some of the big ones right there. I mean, your gut health affects your brain health as well, and your mental health. So, um, I think that's probably one of the things I think that is most overlooked. Um, People are trying to deal with it with a medication or even alcohol or whatever. And if you would just look at your gut health and fix that first, so many people, I mean, one of my clients actually, he ran his own business, had a hard time dealing with stress. It was a pretty high stress environment. And he said within the first few weeks of working together, making the changes to his diet and really working on that gut health, he was seeing such a huge change in his ability to just deal with the stress. He wasn't as high stress, he could feel himself just being more even keeled and calm.
Mhm.
So just a, prime example right there is that, nutrition itself can make such a huge impact on just even your brain health.
Yeah, many doctors have referred to the gut as the second brain, right? There are some researchers out there that are talking about it as the first brain, and our brain is actually our second brain because of the directional impact that the gut
Yeah.
has on our brain health and our mental health. I'm curious, as you've tackled your own gut issues, what's changed for you mentally and emotionally?
A lot of it mentally for me, I dealt with so when I was full on in systemic bacterial infection, brain fog was the struggle was real. I mean, I had a hard time just focusing on doing work. It was very frustrating to me because I'm very organized and very just like purpose driven, like let's go. And I just was like felt like I just was in this fog on a regular basis. So, I mean, having that lifted, the ability to deal with stress, that's another one for me. I'm usually pretty even keeled, but I definitely have found mood swings a lot more regular for me when I was dealing with all of that, to be able to come out of that and just to feel like things are a little more even and I'm not having those mood swings, especially when it comes to like hormonal timeframes. That's, I mean, for women especially, that can be huge. But that in and of itself has changed even for me. That week before, which is normally before the period, which is normally really hard for a lot of women, that's evened out a lot too. So yeah, it's had some huge impacts for me.
I'm glad you brought up like the premenstrual symptoms because that's a very common thing that people think is normal, and the intensity of that it's not normal. I had Dr. Taylor Burrows on the podcast a couple of times, and she discussed that this idea that if there are wide mood swings happening in the period leading right up towards the menstrual cycle, that's not a normal thing. That is an indication that there is something either hormonally or there's something wrong with gut health, and gut health issues will make those symptoms and those problems significantly worse. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that if anyone listening to this, if they say, wow, right before the menstrual cycle, I just feel like the wheels fall off the bus. Well,
Yeah.
we probably need to start looking at your gut health, and we probably need to start looking at what's going in there. Even if you're eating healthy food, you could be poisoning your body with that food that's healthy. Now, if you have a something that you are intolerant to or allergic to, God, it's like dropping an atomic bomb in the gut, and
Mhm.
that will negatively affect the overall symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
For Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, but I mean, the thing to think about too is say you have leaky gut, okay?
Mhm.
You're not getting all of your nutrients the way that you're supposed to be. So
Right,
a lot of
right.
people end up deficient when they're still eating or even taking the supplements that they should be taking. They're not absorbing them the way that they should be. And so, that can be a problem in and of itself too. You could be either one, just not, deficient because of that, or two, your body's reacting to those foods and causing issues as well. So
Vitamins and minerals they work in a co-occurrence factor, right? And so that when you have certain vitamins that work well in a synergistic fashion with other vitamins, minerals, and whatnot, the body tends to absorb them better. Now, there are certain vitamins that block other vitamins. There are certain minerals that block other minerals from being absorbed well in the body. And
yeah,
if your gut is not healthy, then you will run into this issue where you might become deficient. I've actually had clients over the years that were dealing with iron deficiency, and it had nothing to do with their diet. They were getting plenty of iron in the diet. You
that's
you you
that was me. Yeah.
resemble that, huh?
Yeah, that was totally me. I honestly like when I first went to the doctor and finally was like, let's figure this out. We did the poop test, we did everything. She's like, well, it
Mhm.
looks like you're a little bit deficient on iron. Okay. So she had me start taking iron. Month
Mhm.
later, my iron levels were lower a month later.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was dealing with leaky gut. So my body it didn't matter. I could take the iron. My body was not absorbing it the way it needed to because nothing was working the way it was supposed to be working. So, Yeah.
Yeah, for our listeners, it's a very common thing. And if anybody out there, the story I like to tell to kind of relate it to is if you are drinking too much water, right? There's an appropriate amount of hydration that we all need. If you're drinking too much water, your body increases diuresis, which is the flushing of that water, um, and then you are less hydrated because you're overdoing it. The body is going to protect, and so it's the same concept here, right? If you are deficient in iron but you don't address the leaky gut issue, you will then become more deficient in iron if you're putting more into your body. So really, really fascinating that happened to you. I'm curious. We know that in order for somebody to lose weight, lose body fat, they can't go against the law of thermodynamics, right? More energy needs to be used than is being brought in, i.e., you need to burn more calories than over a certain period of time, weeks, months. However, inflammation and gut issues can create challenges in keeping the body from dropping fat because fat's a protective tissue. And that one of its basic functions is to protect us, is to keep us insulated and alive. Hormones are produced from fat. We live and die essentially by the healthy production or healthy fat that's in us. So while not everyone needs to address gut issues prior to dropping body fat,
Mhm.
my observation is that fixing the gut becomes a fast track to fat loss as well, but also strength and health improvements. I'd love to get your thoughts on how gut health can affect weight loss.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, if you think about the fact that we'll just start with say you have leaky gut, okay? If you're not if that does not get fixed, you think about all of the challenges that can happen, even just the hormonal imbalances. So say you're someone who doesn't deal with stress well. So you have high cortisol levels. Those things can impact each other. So you've got leaky gut, which is then also causing inflammation, which
Mhm.
is then helping to increase that cortisol level, which is then also affecting your ability or inability to lose weight, just in and of itself. So like fixing the gut, um, I think is crucial to be able to actually lose weight, but also to maintain, but then keep energy level. If you're not fixing the gut, you're not going to be, like we talked about already, getting the nutrients that you need. Your body's not going to be, you can eat as healthy as you want, but you're not going to be fully getting the nutrients that you need. And so then you're not fueling your muscle the way it needs to be fueled. You're not getting the energy from the food that you're eating the way that you necessarily would if the gut was actually healed. Um, I, there's just so many ways that I feel like that it can affect. I mean, just even your motivation to stay on track.
Yeah,
Like if you're
big
not dealing
time.
with your gut health, it's going to affect you mentally and your ability to to even stick with something. So I think so many ways.
Yeah. There are so many ways that are direct and indirect, right? I mean, if the gut health isn't if you don't have great gut health, I should say, then you are going to run into a multitude of direct and indirect issues that will directly then affect your body's ability to release fat and to build muscle.
Mhm.
Like you,
Yeah.
you, you just talked about, the gut negatively affects the brain if your gut health is not healthy, and so then you will lose motivation, you will lose drive, and you will not have energy. Energy isn't just proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. We get psychic energy from people around us, right? We're around other people, and so psychologically we get boosted up. We get energy from so many different things. You go out in the sun, you get the vitamin D on your skin,
Mhm.
and you
Yeah.
feel energy, right? The brain helps to give us a significant amount of our energy and
Mhm.
breath. I mean, gosh, I can't tell you the number of people where if they were dealing with inflammation and breath, they became shoulder breathers rather than deep belly breathers. And
Mhm.
they're just not oxygenating the cells. If you are not getting the appropriate level of oxygen and your vita capacity drops because of the way that, and I know it doesn't technically drop. So if there's a
Right.
scientists out there is like, Steve, your vital capacity does. No, I
Right.
get that, but you're not bringing in as much oxygen.
Yeah.
Then you're not oxygenating your cells because the short breathing not only decreases the amount of oxygen that you're getting to your cells, but it also changes your breathing pattern, which then negatively affects your hormones. And so
Mhm.
it all just cascades. And from
Yeah.
that, this cascading effect, we
Mhm.
are going against that anabolic process of building muscle and then losing fat.
Mhm.
Yeah, you've had some really good success in working with clients to help them to improve their gut health and to drop body fat. What are some of the things that you see as clients begin to take the right steps to move into the better gut health process?
I think first and foremost, so my process usually requires a restrictive diet, and it's not something that I would
Mm.
normally for anybody who's just wanting weight loss that I would recommend for that. But it is necessary for the process of healing the gut and starving the bacteria that's in the system. So
Yep.
they usually
Yep.
will start on a restrictive diet, which is a very low carb. I mean, we're
Mhm.
talking like there's certain vegetables that you're eating on a regular basis, but there's no fruits, and it's mainly proteins and healthy fats. And it is, obviously not something I would recommend for life. But what's happening is, as in that first like week or so, let me just use my client Christy as an example. So she honestly, her body responded so well in that first week, and weight has been an issue for her. But she lost 8 pounds in the first week, which
Wow.
honestly is not the norm. Like that is not normally what you would recommend for weight
Yep.
loss,
Yep.
but her body just went, I can breathe, because
Mhm.
we took out the inflammatory stuff. We took out the stuff that was fueling the fire, and her body just was able to start working with her.
Mm.
And then pretty darn quickly, she was able to start seeing things like the brain fog lifting, energy level was increasing. One of the things that she said she noticed pretty darn quickly is it didn't register at first, but she went to do a squat and she went, oh my gosh, I can do this without my knees hurting. And I haven't been able to do that in like years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff is happening and happening fairly quickly because we've removed the things that are fueling the fire and are fueling the body with some good stuff still, and not super low calorie, but just really aiming to just like give anti-inflammatory type foods, remove the inflammatory foods, and give the body the room that it needs to actually just take a deep breath and actually start working for you.
Yeah.
So
A couple of great points I think that you made in that. Number one, when you're dropping 8 pounds, that is normal, right?
yeah, yeah.
But it is normal to hold on to a lot of excessive fluid when you're in a state of distress. And so when you lose 8 pounds in the first couple of weeks, you're probably losing a significant amount of fluid in addition to probably
Mhm.
dropping a little bit of body fat, right? So for people who listen to that, they could say, oh, I'm overweight. I want to do this gut health thing, and that's going to help me to lose 8 pounds of fat in 2 weeks. So, yeah, it's probably not going to happen, but will you
Yeah,
lose a significant amount of weight because your body gets to that? Oh, I'm
right.
good. And it releases the
Yeah,
fluid and it releases the body fat. Like, yeah, it's
yeah.
I'm with you. I have seen the exact same thing happen with people. In fact, I think the one that I saw lose the most was right around that 10 to 12 pound
Mhm.
drop in weight in
Right.
the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And if we're being honest, and this is kind of gross, so for those of our listeners that don't want to hear this, some of that is just you've been holding on to too much stuff in your intestines. So you're probably like I was back in
You're
the day
full of
where you're
it.
just too full of it. And I've had clients come to me and they say, wow, I went to the bathroom after going on this gut health protocol for 3 to 5 days, whatever it was. I couldn't believe it. And like your client, they can now squat without knee pain. They
Right.
can do, the low back pain is gone. And they didn't realize that that inflammation was pushing down on the pelvic floor. The inflammation was pushing out onto all the nerves that run into the spine.
Mhm.
When that happens, you generally get these tiny muscles right along the spine, the multifidus, that shut down. If the
Mhm.
multifidus shuts down, you're probably not functioning very well in the transverse or your internal, girdle muscle of your abdomen. And so your spine runs around naked, right? It's not protected by this internal um, fix. So I think those are, really important that we recognize that. You also talk about how when people start to improve their gut, the mental clarity just comes back, and they start to have a little bit more energy. Do you find that that's something that gives them more mental momentum to continue on with their goals?
Oh, completely. I think if I mean, if you think about it, okay, yeah, so my gut's starting to feel better, but I have no energy. I mean, that's gonna get that's gonna be a drag after a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say the increased energy, being able to actually, function mentally, that's huge for people. I mean, I think to me, yeah, you can live with some gut issues, but after a while, that just weariness um, and not being able to even function mentally, that's I think what takes you down.
Talk a little bit more about the restrictive piece because, in order to find out where the markers are that are causing the gut issues to continue,
Mhm.
I love how you put it. You talked about that it's restrictive, but it's not low calorie. And I think that's really important because I've seen gut programs that people have put out before. And by all rights, those people should not be writing gut programs for people because it was essentially just putting them on a lower calorie diet and, removing a bunch of things.
Right,
Removal of things, absolutely, because we have to identify what is not working, but you still need to feed the body. And so,
right.
talk a little bit more about your process of restricting certain things to identify what the problems are, but not taking people on low calorie.
Right. Yeah. The thing is that obviously, you need energy. And if you're going to restrict calories, you're restricting your energy, first of all.
Yeah.
We're already going to be restricting carbs, which in the first couple weeks for some people can cause some low energy. And so, that in and of itself is a challenge because it's a change for the body. But the restriction part of it is, really when it comes down to it is we're taking out foods like dairy, we're taking out foods
Mm.
like gluten, things that we know are normally inflammatory for a lot of people. And a lot of that just comes down to the process that those things are taken through anyway. So really for most people, they're not great to be eating on a regular basis anyways, but we won't go into that one. Gut health stuff. I mean, if we're removing starches and things that actually are, so the goal behind it is let's starve the bacteria. Okay. And if you're eating foods that are actually breaking down into sugars, that's what those bacteria want to feed on. And so we're removing foods that will break down into the stuff that they want to feed on so that we can effectively kill them. So restriction for the purpose of one, bringing down the inflammation, but also starving out bacteria so it can be removed from the system. So then you can begin the healing process. Um, but definitely not restricting calories because you need that energy and you need to be fueling your body still with foods that will give you that energy as you kind of pass that point where your body adjusts to not having as many carbs. So does that make sense? Does that answer your
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's a great point because and sometimes I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I will even take clients on a higher caloric intake if we're
question?
reducing their carbohydrates because they just haven't adapted to utilizing fat as a fuel source, and
Mhm.
it helps to reduce some of those negative side effects that people experience in those first 2 3 weeks of
Yeah,
going on a low carb.
yeah,
It helps to give them a little bit more energy as we're addressing and identifying what the problems are.
yeah.
What about supplements? What do you utilize supplements in the gut healing protocol? Is this something that you introduce at the beginning, later on, if you do? How
Yeah.
do they fit?
Yeah, so for me, I have one specific one that I is across the board for me if we're looking at gut health and really working on dealing with bacteria in your system. And that one it's a probiotic, but it's also one that has a biofilm dissolver as well as a binder. And so what that does is it goes in and it's got those three actions. So it's going to go in, it's going to help dissolve the biofilm that the bacteria surrounds itself with for protection so that it can effectively be killed. And then the binder helps to remove that from your system. And then the probiotic is helping to repopulate the good bacteria in your system. So that one for me is an across the board. I use
Mm,
that one with all my clients. And then there's a one called L-glutamine. That
yep,
one for me as
yep.
well. It's just really, really good for helping to heal the gut lining. Great anti-inflammatory. So those are two that I pretty much across the board do for most clients. And then, it will depend on their needs and what challenges they're facing. But I do believe that supplements can have a great they're a great tool to help with it. Sometimes I will even, depending on the aggressiveness and how long they've been dealing with it, sometimes we'll actually have them use some essential oils as well. So,
Fascinating. Yeah. I it almost I don't there might be people out there that can help people to heal their gut without supplementation. I've not been successful at that.
yeah.
Glutamine's one that's always in my tool bag. Which is fascinating for me. I mean, for anybody watching, they can see the gray in my beard and they know that I've been doing this for 25 years.
Wow.
Rough and tough. And glutamine, when I got into the business, was all about, hey, take this if you want to preserve muscle because of the properties that it has of, inhibiting the breakdown process as you go through a cut and you're trying to get more definition, right? We didn't really understand at that time the brain boosting benefits of glutamine, and we had no idea what the glutamine was doing to heal the gut lining. I was introduced to that concept when some of the studies came out and
Mhm.
started increasing dosage of glutamine for my clients, especially in the morning with warm water and nothing else, from 5 grams a day up to 10 to see how that would work. And we got up to 20 to 25 grams a day. And that seemed to be the sweet spot for a lot of people. It's anywhere between 15 to 25 grams a day, so average of 20. And I think
Mhm.
most of the research supports a higher dosage of glutamine to heal gut lining over time. So I am totally with you on that. What about food? Once you've started to the healing process, you've got some of the supplements into play,
Mhm.
and you've taken out a lot of uh, the usual suspects. Let's say, what are some things that you put into someone's diet to help to rebuild the gut health?
Mm. Um, so really honestly, like for the first 3 months, especially the first 3 months, we're usually pretty restrictive on that diet. Stick with it. Mainly because a lot of people that I've been dealing with, that I've worked with, have been dealing with those gut issues for quite a while. But when we start working our way back in, I really like to start working in, and we haven't really done a lot. I know a lot of people are very much like the prebiotics and all of that kind of stuff. Haven't done a lot of that. I really try to work them in with foods they would normally eat, but really focus on a little bit more of the like higher quality antioxidants. So we start by
Mm,
working back in some more of like the berries, the sweet potatoes, the things
right.
that would kind of be a little bit more anti-inflammatory, but also, have some good, like solid nutritional quality, but they would also be normal for them to be eating. But I definitely, towards the end is when I would start to venture out a little bit more with maybe some of the prebiotic type stuff. But
Yeah.
the nature of it, sometimes those can actually cause some more gut distress for some people who have been dealing with gut dysfunction for a while. So,
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. I'm curious how many people come to you where they have just thought that they could deal with their gut issues by eating more fiber. They went to a doctor and doctor said, eat more fiber. And so they started eating more fiber and the belly goes out and they have more gas, more bloating, more belching, more constipation. Do you see that often?
yeah. I see just normally people coming to me and they've been eating healthy. Like they know how to eat healthy. That is not foreign to them. The problem is that they're still eating the stuff that's feeding the bacteria that's in their system. That's usually what I see.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people where they go to the doctor. Doctor says, "Well, you got some digestive issues. Go take some Metamucil." So they
Uh-huh.
start taking fiber, and they start, eating a little bit more fibrous foods, and then they can't figure out why am I feeling worse.
Right.
And so you're feeding the problem, but you're also, not to get too technical here, the way that fiber works inside the body. I know you know this. I'm talking to our listeners, is that fiber goes into the lining and it brushes up against these little hair-like structures called microvilli. Those microvilli sit on top of villi, which those are kind of nipple-like structures on the inside of the gut. And the more fiber you get, the more they brush up on there, stimulate it, and create more sites essentially for the body to grab nutrients and pull it in. but they also irritate and agitate. If you get too much fiber, that's why you get bloating, gas, and other issues. And so, again, another reason why I wouldn't recommend trying to go this alone, right?
Right. Yeah. No. I think there's a lot of people who do. They tried for a while. They're like, but they just can't quite figure out why am I feeling worse? I'm doing everything right. Why am I feeling worse?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny. I had a doctor that I worked with. I worked with his wife. This was probably 20 plus years ago. I worked with his wife for a long time, and she kept saying, "You got to go meet with Steve." And his mentality, he actually told me this later on. He said, "I just thought all you did was try to make people throw up and work hard, like squat, get on a bike. I didn't think you had any intelligence whatsoever." I'm like, well, thank you. I, I resemble that. But it's pretty fascinating how people think the health professionals, okay, you're going to tell me to squat. I know how to squat. Okay, you're going to tell me to do 3 sets of 10. I know how to do 3 sets of 10.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just like saying that you're going to go to your accountant and they're going to tell you to, spend less than you make. Obviously, people know those basics. You hire a health professional to get real results, to understand the in depth aspects of the body.
Right.
Um, I had a conversation in episode 170 with Dr. Ken Obala, who is really a premier researcher in the history of food and why we eat what we eat and how we've done that really since the beginning of time, from what he could find. Um, he told me, uh, in no uncertain terms, we've always been omnivores throughout history. So this whole idea of like getting rid of one thing and just eating, I'm a vegan, I'm a carnivore, right? Just doing that. That's a relatively new phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've always eaten animals and plants because that is how we've evolved as a species. Once you've helped somebody to heal their gut and they start to move forward into a much more positive direction, how do you recommend clients get the variety of foods that they need in order to maintain good gut health and achieve their other goals?
Yeah. Um, so my goal always, towards the end of a program is to really work them back into a good balanced diet. And so really it tends to go symptomatically. We'll start to work things back in as their symptoms improve, and as they can handle that. But I'm a fan of a good balanced diet, but just really learning your body, learning what works well for your body. I don't agree in the whole across the board, like you need to eat dairy, it's the only way for you to get calcium.
Yes.
Guess
Yep. Yep.
I don't eat dairy. I don't. Like, I went so long without eating it because it caused me issues. Now that I've got my gut healed up, I can eat it occasionally, but
Mm.
I'm fine without it. Like, I don't need it on a regular basis. There are certain things that I just don't eat on a regular basis, and people kind of look at me and go, "What's up with that?" Well, I make sure that I have a good variety and balance from all over the board. I love lean proteins. I love a good hamburger every once in a while, but like veggies, fruits,
Yeah.
healthy
Yeah.
fats, like, good balance of those things. That's what I recommend on a regular basis for my clients. I think that you need a good balance of carbs, fats, proteins, and making sure that you're getting a good amount of all those micronutrients as well. And if you can't get all those, then let's figure out how to supplementally help you with that. But I'm a big fan of balance, a good balanced diet on a regular basis. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think it's I love the fact that you're talking about how it needs to be different for everybody, right? It's not the same.
Mm-mm.
I love this quote from I think it's Socrates, where he says, "No man has a right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It is a
Mm.
shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable."
I love that.
And that's different for everybody.
Mhm.
I can't handle certain foods that I know other family and friends can.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And so, like you, I, I pick and choose what I eat, and there are certain things that I will just never touch. In fact, I think you and I were going back and forth one day about this. Um, I've got such bad memories as a kid
Finish.
on cooked spinach. Yeah. In fact, I actually won an award in college. Um,
Mhm.
I don't even know what the award was, and I never got anything for it. I may need to look into that. But I won an award in a creative writing class about my short story about cooked spinach
Mhm.
and how horrible it is. I would rather take my sweaty gym sock and suck on that than eat cooked spinach. Like that tastes better to me. You will
Oh,
never see me eating cooked spinach, and you will rarely ever see me eat spinach.
yeah,
Broccoli, I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole.
yeah,
There's so many things I just don't want to touch because they don't fit into my lifestyle.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you completely. I think it's interesting. I don't know about you. So I eat pretty darn healthy. I love eating clean. I love vegetables. I love fruits. I love all that good stuff. I love some of the other stuff as well. But my brain just functions a little bit differently, partly because of what I walked through, but also partly because of my profession. So like I don't process food the same way that everybody else does. I look
Sure.
at it
Yeah.
and I see the nutritional quality of it. I see the calories. I see all of that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
is it worth it to me? Is it
Yeah.
worth it to me?
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fat. It's just, am I going to enjoy this enough that it's going to matter to, like it, I love dessert. Don't get me wrong. So I will figure that into my diet, but like, it better be worth it to me or else I'm not eating it. Like I better
Yeah.
enjoy that thing like crazy. So,
And I
um,
think that's the key, right? Figuring out how do you eat the things that you enjoy? How do you eat the things that provide you a sense of comfort? How do you eat the foods that get you connected to other people in your culture and your community, right? I mean,
yep,
there's ways to do it.
yep.
Well, Sammy, we are coming up on our time. One question I like to ask a lot of my guests is if you were to look back, let's say 10 years ago,
Mm,
and that you were to say, hey, here's something that I used to believe that I no longer believe now, what is that?
You're going to make me think deep here. Yeah, I think it's just the concept of just eating healthy. It's that's not enough. You've got to figure out what that looks like first of all for your body, but it's not just about eating healthy because you can eat healthy and still not reach your goals. So it's the matter of, the type of foods that you're eating, the balance of the foods that you're eating, the quality of the foods that you're eating. That like you got to get into that. It's not just about eating healthy because you can eat healthy all you want and it may not change anything for you if you don't heal your gut, if you don't, all those things. It kind of spurs off. So I think that would be what it is for me.
I love that. That's great. Well, Sami Nordlund, thank you so much for coming on today. If people are interested in learning more about you and what you do, how you coach people, how you walk them through this process of healing their gut, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Oh, definitely. LinkedIn is probably first and foremost, but if not, I have my website and that is foreverfitnesstraining.com.
Right. And we will link that in the show notes. Once again, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
You bet. Thanks for joining me today for this episode of The Evolved Man. If you're learning from and gaining value from this podcast, please subscribe to the Evolved Man newsletter, where I can support you even more in your personal evolution. I want to help you reverse engineer your success. The Evolved Man newsletter is like getting a free coaching session to keep you moving forward on your path of personal success. Go to theevolvedmanpodcast.com to sign up today. If you found value in this episode, you can give us up to a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify and share it with your network. That's the best way to support the podcast so we can continue to get great guests and provide you with the best wisdom for your daily life. Until next time, keep evolving.